So I'm very excited today because I'm sitting here with Sakiko, who is a chocolate maker. Now, I love chocolate, but I especially love the kind of chocolate she does, which I just by coincidence knew and had bought. I'd seen it in Planet Organic. I'd also seen it in a supermarket when I was in Los Angeles, because her chocolate does not have any sugar in it. It's super healthy. And as it turns out, Sakiko and I met at the Health Optimization Summit, and she is a healthy sugar alternative expert, and she really, really knows her stuff. So I wanted to talk to her. So she uses a mixture of these healthy alternatives in her chocolate. And Sakiko, if you have one of your chocolate bars, perhaps you can hold it up so we can see it. So it's called NoMoSu, which stands for No More Sugar. So just tell us a little bit about that. How did you come to be making chocolate with no sugar in it?
Long story short, I went through my own health journey. I was in a different career, but did notice that I started having energy slumps, went on a sugar-free experiment to see if that would make a difference. Did 2 weeks with nothing sweet whatsoever, just to make it super simple, no fruit, nothing sweet. And I was blown away by how I felt and looked, and my energy was stable and high and sustained. And frankly, I felt euphoric consistently, which I never felt in my life before in such a consistent manner. And that's because I had sugar every day of my life. And I wanted to hang on to that feeling, but I grew up in Belgium. I missed chocolate. So I went on a journey to see, is it possible to have healthy sweetness? And it is. And that's how it started.
Right. So when I met Sakiko, I went straight over because I knew these chocolates and I knew how healthy they were. And I went straight over to buy a bar. And then we got talking about, the healthy sweeteners, which I have written about on the Ageless site a lot. And I don't actually think I've done a video on it, but I have written about it quite a lot. So now we have an expert because there are quite a number of these healthy sweeteners, and I'm going to throw a few at you to get your reaction. So yes. Okay, so the latest one that I discovered, in fact, on a journey I had a few months ago to Los Angeles, was something I wasn't familiar with. Now, as we are doing this video, you are actually sitting in Los Angeles, and I discovered monk fruit as a sweetener, which I had never heard of before. So do you think that is a good sweetener? What are your thoughts on monk fruit?
Yes, so monk fruit, it's technically it's an extract from the monk fruit. So it's not the entire fruit because that would contain sugar and fructose. So it is an extract from the monk fruit that is not fruit. And just to define sugar, people throw around this word. And when I think of sugar, and what I really care about really is either sucrose, which is glucose and fructose bonded together in like table sugar and so on, or fructose, which is the sweet stuff. So for example, a bowl of white rice, it doesn't have any fructose, it's glucose. It's a carbohydrate, it has glucose. But for example, a glass of orange juice has mostly fructose. It's very sweet, and that's the sweetness comes from the fructose. And I studied an MSc in personalized nutrition, functional medicine, and my dissertation topic was on fructose and its impact on cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis. But anyway, if fructose in excess is what really causes a lot of damage, so the sweet stuff. And as
so part of we need to avoid. Yeah,
yes, and too much.
Sucrose itself, sugar, regular table sugar, is a mixture of glucose and fructose.
That's right.
Most things are. I mean, most fruits are a mixture of the two.
A mixture, yes. And some have the bonded together molecule, which is sucrose, and some have some of that, and then free molecules of fructose, free molecules of glucose that are not bonded together either. So anyway, that's defining.
It's the fructose that is sweet, and it has been proven it's not that good for our health. Although I would say that I recently read somewhere that when you consume fructose and sugar in its natural form, like in a piece of fruit, that it has a very, very different effect on your body and is
Yes.
actually beneficial.
Well, it's not the fructose per se that's beneficial. It's the whole fruit. So, and the fruit has water and fiber, and that dampens the amount of fructose that reaches the liver, because it's quite a little amount in an apple, let's say. And you've got water and fiber that it needs to be processed in your
The fiber is very important, and
exactly.
we should talk about that in a moment. So, can you talk us through the different kinds of sugars there are, and
Yes.
which ones you think are good, and tell us which ones you use in your chocolate and why you chose those ones.
Yes, I will do that. And I'm sorry, I didn't fully address your question about monk fruit. So I'll just say
Oh,
that
right, yes. I
monk
forgot
fruit
about monk yes.
monk fruit extract is a molecule. It's like a glycoside, very similar to the stevia molecule. So both stevia leaf extract and monk fruit extract are very similar in their sweetness intensity, and their chemical composition.
Is
Yes.
insanely sweet.
Yeah, they're a very similar sweetness level, which is why you cannot just throw them into a recipe for a cake, and hope that it turns out well. So it needs to be a combination of ingredients that replaces sugar in your recipes. And the monk fruit extract, just on the point of sustainability, is a bit less sustainable because you need a large area to grow all these fruit, and then you extract a small amount. So just the efficiency of that from a land use perspective is not fantastic. So that's the only sort of caveat I have. Monk fruit extract.
Right. Okay, and that's a very good point. I mean, it was interesting when I was in Los Angeles earlier this year, because, as I said, I'd heard of monk fruit, and I'd heard of it as a vegan alternative to meat, actually, but I hadn't heard of it as a sweetener, and it was everywhere. Absolutely everywhere. I mean, you go into a bakery or a chocolate shop or whatever, and they go, "Oh yes, it's sugar-free, it's all sweetened with monk fruit." And I'm going, "What is this monk fruit?" So I went into the supermarket and I came home with a big bag of monk fruit.
Yes.
But as I often find, this happens with stevia, because I do quite a lot of baking,
Oh,
where
yes.
I will try and make healthy muffins and healthy cakes without using sugar, and often without grains. I mean, I'll use, almond meal or something.
Yes.
What I've discovered, as with the monk fruit, if I have stevia, it's usually granulated and it's combined with erythritol.
Yes. Yes, that's right. And
So
so
why do they do that?
Yes, because of what you just said before that, which is monk fruit extract and stevia extract are very, very, very sweet. So if you have a cake recipe and you're going to use 200 grams of sugar in the cake, you cannot replace that with stevia or monk fruit extract on its own, because your cake will be missing 198 grams
Right.
of substance. So sugar plays a structural role in recipes as well. And erythritol conveniently is a natural, abundant ingredient. It's found in many different fruits, vegetables, mushrooms. It's found in fermented foods and wine and tamari sauce and so on. So you're probably eating it anyway every day. So it's a perfectly natural molecule, and it's 60% as sweet as sugar. And so combining that bulk more, it provides the bulk that sugar is providing. And then you can use a bit of this monk fruit extract or stevia extract to add sweetness to create a well-rounded sweetness that is more similar to sugar. But it is tricky, it's challenging, and often it doesn't taste exactly like sugar. And that's where my company comes in that we do a lot of research on cell taste receptors and a lot of functional gut health research and so on to create a sweet mix that actually is good for you and fully works in recipes.
Good. Yes, I know, because even with my experiments, and I take it, I think, when I do all my baking, and I think it's quite nice, and I'll give it to my family and they go, "Oh,
yes,
no, thank you." No, thank you.
Exactly.
And I don't mind it, but they're not going for it, I have to say.
That's why large scale sugar substitution hasn't occurred yet, because it just hasn't been scientific enough, especially with the cell taste receptor research that you can do to optimize these different things you don't really notice, you don't think about, but it's when you feel the sweetness, how sweet it is, how long it lasts, does it linger in your mouth? All these things, affect whether you think something's delicious or not. And it's really important to address everything.
Yes. So my goodness. I mean, what a fantastic job. You know, you're searching sweetness and sugar and healthy things. So, one thing I have previously done an article about is
Yes.
chicory root fiber,
Yes.
which is extremely healthy.
Yes.
And as a sweetener, but I don't think it's that sweet, is it?
No, it's not. It's not. And so that's why we have this healthy sweet ingredients toolkit, and there you can think of it as sort of three broad categories. One are the very, very sweet ingredients like stevia and monk fruit, and then you have the sort of less sweet but non-caloric natural ingredients like erythritol. And then you have fibers. Fibers provide texture, structure. A chicory has a mild sweetness to it. So sometimes you do find products only sweetened with chicory, but because it's a fiber,
widely used, I found.
Yes.
I love nothing better than reading labels, which
yes.
everybody should do, because you'd be shocked what you could find on a label. But
Yes.
chicory root is in a lot of things.
Yes.
When I say that, in a health food store.
Yes. Well, it's a very healthy prebiotic fiber. It's great for your gut microbiome. But if you only rely on that to sweeten your product, it's going to be very chewy or a very funny texture,
because not very sweet.
Fiber, exactly, not very sweet either. So it's part of the toolkit, and it's a great part of the toolkit, but not on its own.
So what about xylitol? I did go through a big xylitol phase, I have to say, with my baking. I think when I first started this baking, I was a xylitol girl.
Yes.
And that also used to come granulated.
Yes.
But that can have affect your tummy in not such a good way.
So it's a healthy natural sweetener in general, and it comes from birch, and it is about 70. No, it's actually close to the sweetness of sugar, but it does have a bit of a minty cooling effect as well. So it might work very well in an ice cream, but not so well in some cakes. People can usually tell this is not sugar if it's only sweetened with xylitol.
So far, prefer the mixture. I've been using the monk fruit with erythritol and stevia with erythritol. And I have to say, at the moment, those are my favorites.
Okay.
Sorry, I interrupted you about xylitol.
No. So what you were mentioning about the tummy, there are all these, they're called polyols. They end in the letters OL, but there are quite a few of them are quite different from each other. And one I would just flag to stay away from is maltitol, because it really breaks down into fructose and glucose in the body, and it's in a lot of sugar-free candies and so on. But xylitol does have what maltitol also has and sorbitol also has, which is creates osmotic pressure in the gut, and that draws water in, and then you get diarrhea more easily.
And bloating, maybe,
bloating as well. So that's
it's downside. Okay, it's healthy, isn't it?
Yes, and it's not as, this effect is not as strong as with sorbitol. It's terrible. It really has that effect in a powerful way. Whereas
sorbitol is an artificial sweetener.
Yes, sorbitol and maltitol are artificial sweeteners.
So we don't want any of that. We only want to talk about the natural ones. And it's funny, because I've often had little chats with nutritionists, and I've said, well, these healthy ones, are they really healthy? And I get all kinds of answers, and I find that a lot of nutritionists are not keen on these so-called healthy sugar alternatives. And to be honest, I'm not entirely sure why. Do you?
Yeah,
what's your
feeling? I think it's a sort of simple, easy way to go, to just dismiss. But actually, it really just matters based on the biochemistry of the ingredient you're talking about and its metabolic pathway. And if you don't understand those two things, you can't really judge if it's healthy or not healthy. And they're not the same. So, for example, you have bitter plants. Some of them, like broccoli sprouts, are super healthy for you. And some bitter plants are poisonous. They all taste bitter, but that doesn't define whether it's healthy or not. And it's the same for sweetness. So that's yes. And then some nutritionists and some people in general have this idea that because we like sweetness and it's like hedonistic or something, it must be bad for us. And that's actually not true. And neither is it true that it's addictive per se. Sure, we get a pleasure from a delicious taste, no matter what the taste is. We get a dopamine hit from a delicious meal, delicious food that we're eating. But it's actually sensors in our gut. They're called neuropod cells that detect sugar and send the signal to the brain saying, "Oh, this is sugar. Eat more." And they've done experiments where they knock out the taste receptor, so in animals, and the animals don't taste sweetness anymore, and so but they still go for the sugar over and over and over again because the gut is telling them to, not the mouth.
I presumed that sugar was addictive because, I mean, it's a constant battle with me, which is why I'm always trying to, find a healthy alternative, because I do find that I absolutely crave sweet things.
Yeah. Well, it's not the sweetness that is driving that addiction. And the other factor to note is that fructose, really quite uniquely in all foods that we eat, fructose triggers more of the hunger hormone, ghrelin, and actually causes something called leptin resistance. Leptin is the fullness hormone. So basically it ramps up hunger and it suppresses fullness. So it makes you eat more, want more, crave more, etc.
Definitely.
And that's fructose.
You open that bag of chocolates or biscuits or whatever, you can't just have one. No, you've got to have them all. I mean,
yes.
happened to us all, hasn't it?
Yes.
So
but that does not happen. You should check yourself and see what happens. But that does not happen, I find, for myself anyway, with, for example, the chocolates that don't have fructose in them.
No.
I don't have this.
Yes, no, absolutely.
Whereas,
no, I totally agree with you there. I totally agree. And trust me, when it comes to chocolates, I mean, I think I've tried them all. So that's why I was very familiar with your chocolate. By the way, they are, I mean, I've seen them in England, so I know you can get them here, Planet Organic, which sadly went under a few months ago. But I think they are now have risen again.
They've risen, yes. Yes, they've risen. Yes.
So
the founder took it over and is now resurrecting it.
Fantastic. So now there's another sweetener I wanted to ask you about that I don't know a lot about, but I had heard good things via a nutritionist, and that's allulose.
Yes.
I don't know what allulose is, though. What is it?
Yes, it's as you can tell by the name, it ends in ose, so it's a sugar, but it actually has this blood glucose lowering effect, which is a bit kind of significant. And it started to be used in Japan actually many years ago, and its safety is clearly proven by now. But I haven't found. I keep searching for mechanistic studies which explain the pathway by which it lowers blood glucose, because that's quite a profound effect. So I really want to know, like, what is happening there, how does it work, and so on. So that's my only
it's not completely understood yet, is what
how it works. But ostensibly it sounds great. It lowers blood glucose, so it sounds great. But I'm still.
I mean, I don't remember seeing it. Is it like in health food stores, and is it granulated?
Yeah, both monk fruit extract and allulose have not been approved by EFSA, by the EU yet.
Yes, I did find that. But
that doesn't mean that they're bad. It just means that it's very slow in the EU. I'm sure they will be approved, and so allulose is an interesting option. The other caveat is that it has a very strong Maillard effect, browning. So if you're going to bake cookies or so on, they might turn out very, very dark.
Oh, okay.
And that is also a question to me, because that effect, is a chemical effect, and I'm not quite sure how exactly that works, and if that has any effect internally on the body, the fact that it has this strong Maillard browning. So,
well, that explains why I hadn't seen monk fruit before I went to LA. Because I promptly came back and did an article on it, and then when I was oh my goodness, it's not even approved here.
Yes.
But as you say, which sounds bad, the stuff is banned, but actually it's the whole regulatory process. But that would explain why I haven't come across allulose as well. So that's also
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So, just to end this article, so so basically you're saying that they are healthy and they are good to use. So can you please name your top 3 healthiest favorite sweeteners. Start with number 1, number 2, and number 3.
Okay, well,
What do you think are the best ones?
yes, well, and then just to note as well, that it's usually a combination of ingredients that is best. If you just rely on one of them, it's not going to taste well. It's going to be minty. It's going to be so it's but to mention the ones to look for.
You can give answer in a combination if you like.
Yes.
What
yes.
What do you think are the best sweeteners and the
Yes. Yes, well. First, I think stevia is an amazing plant. Stevia, actually, the research on stevia is fascinating and very widespread. It's an adaptogen, and it has been used by indigenous tribes for thousands of years in the Amazon. It even features in the Mayan Popol Vuh, the origin story of the Maya. So it's really old. We've been eating stevia much longer than cane sugar. So it's totally safe in that sense, but they also use it medicinally for people with hypertension, high blood pressure, and high blood sugar. And then the scientific research came and really dug deep and investigated the mechanism of action. And it's fascinating that if you have insulin resistance and you have a big bowl of white rice, for example, I'm simplifying this study, but and your blood glucose area under the curve will be rather high. If you have that same bowl of white rice with stevia in it in a certain dose, then the blood glucose area under the curve will be 30% lower. That's huge benefit. But if you don't have insulin resistance, it's not going to sink your blood glucose either. So it's not. It's an adaptogen in that sense, and it has the same effect on blood pressure. So it's really like a medicinal plant. It has a lot of properties. And one of the most interesting things I think is that there's research showing that it really addresses muscle cells insulin resistance, which is the beginning, earliest stage of insulin resistance. And it helps muscle cells to actually store more glycogen from glucose. So it's like a fascinating world of research on stevia. So stevia, I would say, is not only like health neutral, but health beneficial in certain applications and so on. So stevia, and then erythritol, it's perfectly natural. It sounds like a funny name.
Yes, it does.
It can be organic, and also its metabolic pathway. I always like to know, like, what happens when I eat this, in my body, and its metabolic pathway, because of its tiny molecular size, erythritol washes through, and all of the research now demonstrates that 100% washes through unchanged out through the urine, and that's why it has no calories as well. It's not metabolized by either a microbiome or by
calories.
No calories. Yeah, exactly. And it's actually a molecule that we produce endogenously in the body. So, for example, you might take collagen as a supplement. Your body also produces collagen. It's the same with erythritol. Our bodies produce erythritol, and usually our bodies don't produce something for no reason. And the health studies on erythritol do show that it has a powerful antioxidant effect, free radical scavenging effect. So stevia, erythritol, and then you said top 3. Fiber, again, none of these you can use on their own.
Fiber,
Inulin from either chicory or artichoke or agave. That prebiotic fiber is excellent part of the toolkit of healthy sweetness.
Fantastic. And so, and just a last question. So, I don't know if you use different sweeteners, and because I know obviously with your chocolates, you've got different flavors.
Yes.
Do you use different sweeteners, or do you always use the same sweeteners in all your chocolates?
To achieve the sweetness, we use the same mixture of sweet ingredients, which include the stevia extract. And I just might mention quickly that our stevia extract is unique because it's the only one in the world that's water purified, and that matters for taste. The chemically purified stevia has more metallic and other aftertastes, whereas the water purified stevia doesn't. It has a natural, sweet, clean taste.
Any chemical process that never sounds good, does it?
No, yes, no, but actually you would find that many, even organic extracts, plant extracts are often extracted with a bit of methanol or some kind of chemical and then it's purified and there's none of the chemical left at the end. So it's okay, but the water purification.
Water,
only water,
Okay, so you use stevia.
Yes, and then organic erythritol. All our chocolates are fully organic. So organic water purified stevia, organic erythritol, organic chicory fiber inulin, and agave fiber inulin. Those are the main components of the.
And I know they
sweetener.
taste good because I have tried them and they taste very, very good.
Yes,
So,
thank you.
yeah, and as you say, organic, and I always like dark chocolate, which is very healthy, and yeah, you do
Yes,
really lovely ones. Well,
thank you.
that's absolutely fascinating, and I hope that's really helpful to you out there, that there are healthy alternatives. And so do you approve of my combinations for baking, which is
Definitely,
fruit with
yes.
erythritol and stevia with
Yes,
erythritol, which are granulated, so you just
yes,
like sugar?
yes,
Often,
yes,
if I'm doing, because what I do is, what the thing I like to do is, if I'm baking, I just take a normal cake muffin and I just
yes.
substitute everything. I substitute the wheat for a nut flour, and I
Yes,
substitute the sugar for what I'm using. And you know what? It usually turns out, you think it wouldn't
yes,
work, but it does.
yes, yes,
So,
yes, exactly.
great. Well, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll get to talk about some other things.